We are starting a new year, 2017. We're already 5 days in. So let me be the, I don't know, the 273rd person to wish you a happy new year. Are you almost sick of hearing that? Or have you grown tired of uttering that to your colleagues and other people that you come across? Today's session is all about goal setting. It's all about making this year, I hope, one of your best years yet, and how we can keep those resolutions, or perhaps more importantly, how we can keep those goals. I, in particular, am not a terribly big fan of resolutions. And the reason being is that most resolutions have a due date of December 31st at the very end of the year. And often that's too far out for us. And as a result, we have trouble sticking with those goals, or perhaps we even delay starting those goals. And so we get to, I don't know, mid-fall, and then we say, boy, I gotta get on this. I gotta complete this goal. Well, today I hope to show you some simple tips and some simple techniques to help you identify which goals are most important to you, but also to help you stay on track and help you stick with it. Some of the things that we're going to go over today is, one, how to avoid those distractions, and in particular, how to avoid goal overload. This is a problem that a lot of us suffer from. We've got a lot on our plate. We've got a lot of things that we are responsible for, whether that's in our work lives, whether that's in our personal lives. So how can we avoid the trap of goal overload? We're also going to look at a very important visual I think you should use to help stay on track, something that's going to help keep this goal front of mind so that you can succeed in reaching this goal by the end of the year or whenever you set that particular deadline. I'm also going to show you how to stop sabotaging your own progress. Yes, once in a while, or should I say more than once in a while, we are our biggest distractors, right? We are the ones that get in the way of achieving our own goals. So how can we get out of the way? How can we make sure that we are not the downers that prevent us from reaching our most important work? And lastly, I'm going to share with you 3 apps that I would strongly encourage you to use, or at least check out, at least explore, to see how you can enhance your focus, to see how you can improve your chances of reaching your goals and sticking with those goals. My name is Scott Friesen, and I am the founder of Simpletivity Training. And I refer to myself as a busyness killer. So what on earth is a busyness killer? Well, I think it's our busy lives, it's our busy lifestyles, maybe our busy workplaces, is what gets in the way from us being at our productive best. You see, I believe there's a very distinct difference between being busy and being productive. They are not synonymous. They are not the same thing. Anyone can be busy. You can have a busy day or a busy week, but you're not always productive. And I would like to help you be on the productive side of that coin as much as possible. My goal is to help you get more out of each and every day, and as a result, enjoy less stress. So, as always, I welcome your questions. I encourage you to use the live chat here on YouTube. It's probably on the right-hand side of your screen. If you're on your mobile device, it may be on the lower portion of your screen. And you can also use the hashtag #StopTheBusy. I'll be looking for questions there after today's webinar. You can ask your questions or submit your comments anytime throughout today's webinar, and I will reserve some time at the end. I will do my best to answer as many of those questions as I can near the end of today's session. So let's start with those distractions and goal overload, something that I think we all feel from time to time, maybe even more particularly at this time of year. It's perhaps your first week back at work after a holiday break. There's a lot that you maybe either forgot about or just has been out of mind for a while. And now you've got all these things back in front of you, all these things that you need to accomplish. Well, over my Christmas holidays, some of my boys got some new board games. And as we were playing one of the board games, I noticed that one of the dice we were using, one of the faces of the dice had this symbol on it. Now, I don't remember exactly what this meant in the particular game we were playing, what it meant when someone rolled this particular image, but it really stood out to me as I stared at this image of these multiple arrows sort of all originating from the middle and then branching out to the outside. And I thought, isn't that how many of us feel on a regular basis? It feels like we're being pulled in multiple directions. And we may have even competing goals. The things that we want to do in our professional life or in our career sometimes seem to be at odds with what we want to do in our personal lives. Sometimes the things that we want to do with our health or diet are contrary with our travel routines or other parts of our business or work life. And so I think this is a common feeling that we want so much, we want to get so much done, but sometimes if we're not careful, we get we don't travel very far because of these competing interests or because of these multiple goals, because we're trying to grab at too many things all at once. Well, that reminded me of a very powerful story I heard a number of years ago, and it's still stuck with me, and it's very relevant to our discussion today about goal setting. It revolves around Mr. Warren Buffett. Now, many of you are probably familiar with the name Warren Buffett. He is arguably one of the most successful investors of the last 100 years. As a result, Warren Buffett has been one of the wealthiest people on the planet for roughly the last 25 years or so. But it's not just because he's wealthy that he's well known. He has given away much of his billions away to charity and other worthwhile causes. He's a big champion currently of overtaxing the rich and giving away more money. So Mr. Buffett knows something or two about setting goals and sticking with them. And if you look at his investments in particular, it's interesting. Unlike many stockbrokers or stock investors, he has always chosen to invest in very few companies, very few stocks, but then to hold on to them for a very long period of time, sometimes decades, sometimes multiple decades before finally selling and cashing out for a very large profit. Well, no, today's discussion is not about the stock market, but I think Warren Buffett has something that he can teach you and me about selecting goals and selecting the number of goals that we pursue at any given time. You see, a number of years ago, Warren Buffett had a conversation with his pilot. And he was having this conversation with his pilot, I'm assuming not while they were flying, but who knows, maybe autopilot was on. And he asked his pilot, he said, what are some of your ambitions for the rest of your life? Surely you desire more than just flying me around the world from time to time. And his pilot replied and said, it's funny you should ask. I just wrote down the 20 goals that I'd like to achieve in the next few years. And he presented Mr. Buffett with a piece of paper with all of his 20 goals listed. And Warren Buffett took a quick glance at the goals and he said, those sound like some pretty exciting goals. Looks like you've got some really interesting things that you'd like to do in the next few years. Now tell me, he asked the pilot, he said, which of these 20 are most important to you? Which 5 would you like to do first, or which 5 are the ones that are most valuable, most significant to you? And so the pilot took the piece of paper back, and it didn't take him very long, just a few moments. He had circled the 5 which were most valuable or most important to him, the 5 that he wanted to achieve more than any of the others. And Warren Buffett said, okay, now that you've circled those 5, what are you going to do with the remaining 15? What are you going to do with the goals that you did not circle? And his pilot pondered for a moment and said, well, I guess I'll get around to them from time to time. I might be able to chip away at some of these on the weekends. I have a little extra time in the summer. Maybe I'll try and do a few of these in the summer. I'll get around to them here or there. And all of a sudden, Mr. Buffett's voice changed. His tone changed, and he got very serious. And he said, no, that's where you're wrong. You will avoid those remaining goals like the plague. You will avoid those goals at all costs. And here's why. Because there is nothing that will distract you or pull you away more from your most important goals than good goals, than other, well-to-do goals or goals that are worthwhile doing. There is nothing that will pull you away more than those remaining 15. His advice to his pilot was to focus exclusively on his top 4 to 5 goals and not even think about, not even touch the remaining ones on his list until he had completed those other ones. So here is the lesson learned from Mr. Buffett, and there's also research to back this up. As you increase your total number of goals, you tend to decrease your chance of achieving them. The one additional goal or the 2 additional goals that you add to the ones you already have, or the 1 or 2 key ones you have, drastically reduces your odds of achieving any of them or achieving them at the level or the quality or the quantity that you would like. And this is often why we suffer from goal overload and either seem like we're not getting anywhere fast, or perhaps even in reality, we're not getting anywhere fast. As you increase your total number of goals at a particular time, you will decrease your chance of achieving them. And here's some data, here's some research to back that up. A few years ago, the Franklin Covey Consulting Agency did a study with a few thousand organizations and also teams within those organizations. And this is what they found. They looked at how many goals people were actually setting, or teams were actually setting, and then compared that to how many of those goals they achieved with excellence. Now, you're probably wondering, well, how did they measure, how did they quantify with excellence? Now, I'm not going to get into all of the details here of this study, but let's just say these people who did complete the goals with excellence, they weren't tripping down the final steps of this race. They weren't just barely getting to their sales goals or to their weight loss goals or whatever their goals may be. They weren't getting to it like on the final day or the final week. We're talking that they exceeded, they surpassed their goals. Or if it was a quality goal, they far succeeded what they initially thought was their customer satisfaction, for example. So for those teams or organizations that set 2 to 3 goals, on average, they achieved 2 to 3 of their goals with excellence. But let's go down the line. For those organizations that chose 4 to 10 goals, on average, they only achieved 1 to 2 of their goals with excellence. And then look at this. For those organizations that set 11 or more goals, 0, nada, zilch, achieved their goals with excellence. So a direct correlation with how many goals were set, how many goals were pursued at any given time, and how many were not just achieved, but achieved at a high level. Now, probably one of the questions that you're asking is like, well, Scott, it's the beginning of a new year, and my organization or my company or my business, I mean, we have multiple things that we want to achieve. Are you saying I should only have 2 or 3 goals for the entire year? No, not exactly. Getting back to my earlier comments about resolutions, maybe you can take those annual goals and break them down into quarterly goals or perhaps a monthly goal. The key thing here is how many you're pursuing at any given time, right? So again, I think most of us who have struggled with weight loss or have gone on a diet for some reason or for some purpose have probably understood that you've been much more successful when that has been front of mind, when you haven't had other competing goals, other competing personal or social goals to go along with it. So the lesson here, or the takeaway, is be very specific with what you want. Be careful about how many goals you attempt to achieve at any given time. And you may want to ask yourself some questions such as, if I could only accomplish two things this quarter, or if I could only accomplish three big goals this year, what would they be? Try and be strict with yourself. As you've heard me say before, limitations can often be very liberating. Limitations can be liberating. So play the what if game. Which of these goals are most valuable, are most worthwhile to you, and stick with those ones. So next, we want to move on to staying on track. If we've refined our goals, we've got a nice short list of the 2 or 3 key things that we want to pursue. How can we follow up and fulfill those goals? How can we come back and make sure that we accomplish those things? It's one thing to write them down, right? It's one thing to make them known to a friend. It's one thing to even be specific about what you want to achieve. But it's an entirely different thing about staying on track. That's why so many of us don't tend to visit the gym maybe quite as often when the month of February or the month of March comes around, right? We start with these great ambitions and then we fall off track, or we just, we sort of forget about some of these goals. So how can we make sure that we stay on track? Well, I want to share some lessons from the playground with you. That's right. You can probably observe this at any of your local parks or playgrounds or community centers, anywhere where people may gather together to play some sports. It could be flag football, it could be road hockey, or in this example, I'm going to use basketball. Basketball is one of my favorite sports. I've been a fan of basketball most of my life. I love playing basketball. So let's use basketball as today's example. So let's envision that you and I are walking around your local park, and we get closer and closer to a basketball area. We get closer and closer to an area where a group of teenagers are playing basketball. But we're still a good, I'd say, 50 yards away. We can see how many players are on the court. We can maybe hear the bounce of the ball on the concrete, but we can't hear what they're saying. We're too far away to hear what the individual players are saying. We can only sort of see them play. We can't hear what is going on. So here's my question to you. With only the ability to use your sight, with only the ability to use your eyes, would you be able to tell if they were keeping score or if they were not keeping score? Think about that. You're 50 yards away. You can watch them play, but you can't hear what they're saying. Just by watching the way they interact with each other, just by looking at the way that they're playing, would you be able to tell if they were keeping score or not? I think the answer is quite obvious, and you don't have to be a basketball fan or a basketball player to get to the same conclusion. We play differently, and we play with a lot greater focus when we are keeping score. I'm sure you've probably been involved in some type of team sport, or maybe even an individual sport like tennis. Maybe you're playing one-on-one with a friend of yours. Things change when we are keeping tally. Things change when we are keeping score. So how does this relate to our goals? How does this relate to staying on track? Well, we want to keep score. We need to keep score. The lesson learned is that you and I perform better and with much greater focus when there is a scoreboard involved. When we can see the numbers, when we can wake up in the morning or when we can finish our workday and look at something that tells us that we are either winning this game, either we're getting closer to achieving that goal, or we are not. There's no real gray area with a scoreboard. When you go to a basketball game, when you go to a football game, unless unless the game is tied exactly, no one says, "Well, it's pretty close. They're pretty much the same." No, no. Unless the game is tied exactly, someone is winning, someone is losing, and that's the case with you. Because in most cases, you're competing with yourself when you are achieving your personal goals. You are either winning this game or you are losing this game. So we want to keep some type of scoreboard, some type of visible scoreboard so that we can keep track of our progress, so that we can keep this goal front of mind. Let me use an example in the sense of a job search, something that we're probably all familiar with. We've all looked for employment. Some of us may be looking for employment at the moment. So let's say that that's our current goal. That's one of our primary goals at the moment, to land a new job opportunity. In my particular scoreboard that I have here, this little table I have displayed, I have a group of activities on the left-hand side, and then I have some quantifiable metrics on the right-hand side. So I have my first one is to submit a job application, and my goal, this is my quantitative metric, is I want to submit 5 job applications a week. My next job search activity is to attend some networking events. And my goal, to see if I'm winning or losing, is to attend 2 networking events each and every week. And lastly, as most of us hopefully know, the greatest resource when it comes to finding new or better employment is our own context, the people who know us well. So phone at least 10 of my personal contacts each and every week, check in, maybe catch up with some people that I haven't spoken with in a long time, see what opportunities may be available in the future. So in this example, my scorecard or my scoreboard has some key numbers that will tell me if I am getting closer to landing that job, if I'm actually working my way towards landing and finding that new job, or if it's going to take a lot longer if I don't hit those particular metrics. I can wake up and see, have I submitted 5 this week, or am I behind? Do I need to catch up to get to that number? Have I attended any networking events? Or maybe I've attended 3 this week. Maybe I can focus my efforts somewhere else. Now, here's a tip that I give to many of my clients, and that is making the scoreboard or the quantitative number a weekly number instead of a daily number. You're probably looking at that first activity, submitting job applications 5 times a week, and thinking, well, couldn't I just say I'm going to do it, once a day, Monday through Friday? Yes, you could phrase it that way, and maybe that's how you're going to pursue it. But often when we are so specific about doing an activity on a daily basis or particular days like, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, if we miss a day, if an emergency comes up, if we get sick, if something else happens and we're unable to, sometimes this is when we are hardest on ourselves. This is when we beat ourselves up, right? There's few people that are harder on us than our own selves, right? Than our own psyche. So I often recommend that people make their scoreboard or make their scorecard in sense of weekly activities. So if you have a rough start to the week, you have a rough start to your Monday or Tuesday, you still have time to catch up, and you can still complete and achieve these numbers by the end of the week. If we look at that last one, for example, phone personal contacts. I mean, you could literally do that in one day if you like, or maybe 2 afternoons. You don't have to spread it out equally, but by phrasing it, by having it in a weekly basis, that can often help you to set yourself up for success and not be so hard on yourself if you fail to reach those particular numbers. So Lesson number two, or I should say key takeaway number two, make a scoreboard or make a scorecard and keep it visible somewhere where you can see it on a daily basis. Not only as a reminder of what you are pursuing, not only as a reminder of where you are going and what you want to achieve, but so you can see if you are winning or losing this particular game that we are calling a goal, that we are calling this major project, this thing that you find valuable that you want to pursue. So have a scoreboard and keep it very visible. Now, I want to share some tools that can help us stay on track, can help us manage these goals, and most importantly, if you're a follower of Simpletivity, are simple. There are so many applications available to us today. I mean, it's almost ridiculous, right? How many times have you downloaded an app to your smartphone or to your tablet, and after about a week, or maybe not even a week, you're just like, this is too much. It's taking me this long to set things up. This is making my life even more complicated than it needs to be. So today I'm focusing on 3 apps that are very, very simple, very intuitive to use, and can help you stay focused so you can achieve your goals this year and into the future. Now, the first tool I want to recommend to you, and it may not be a surprise, especially if you're a follower of Simpletivity, and that is Trello. I think Trello is one of the most versatile applications available to us today. It does not matter what you want to manage or what you want to organize. You can do it effectively and very efficiently with the Trello application. For those of you who may be new to Trello, you can sort of think of Trello as the digital version of Post-it notes. I'm sure you've been involved in an exercise where you maybe brainstormed with a team or maybe even on your own, and you wrote down a bunch of ideas on Post-it notes and then started tacking them up on the wall. And then after looking at them or analyzing them, you started rearranging them. Perhaps you started grouping them into different sets. You started putting them into different places. And Trello allows you to do that, but of course, the convenience is that it's online. You can access it from any device, and you can add so much more information. So in this particular example that I have here in the screenshot, I've set up this Trello board as sort of a to-do list / project list. And so it can be a great way to keep track of your goals. It can also be a great way to filter and determine which goals you are going to pursue at any given time. One of these columns, or what Trello calls lists, could be, your active goals, the ones that you're pursuing now, and you could have another list grouping the things that you're thinking of doing. Remember that story with Warren Buffett and his pilot? Maybe that's how he could separate his top 5 or his top 4 goals and then everything else. Trello is also very powerful if you wish to collaborate with other individuals. If you want to use it for your personal goals and personal projects, that's fine, but you can also invite others to participate and see your progress, or maybe it's a team project or a team goal and you want other people involved as well. So Trello, a fantastic tool for managing such work together. Some of the key benefits of Trello: a very simple user interface. It's drag and drop. You quickly move cards from one list to another. So easy to attach documents or images or comments if you need to add additional information. There's a very low learning curve with Trello. When I first introduce people to the Trello application, when I give a live seminar, it usually takes them no more than about 4 or 5 minutes, and they're off to the races, and they're thinking of new ways of using it, new ideas, and how this can make their life or make their business simpler. A very flexible tool for managing any project or goal. You can find many amazing examples of how people have used Trello, but after you've started using it yourself, you're going to come up with some of your own great ways of how to use Trello as well. Again, you can set it up in any way that you like, And we are not talking enterprise software here. Some of you are probably familiar with using software by SAP or using something like Salesforce or some other application with perhaps your place of work or your organization, which has complicated logins and workflows and that type of thing. Trello is so simple and so intuitive to use. Again, it makes life easy, and that's what technology should be doing, right? Technology should be making our life easier and more convenient, not more of a hassle, not more troubleshooting. And like I said, it's great for both personal projects and personal use, or collaborating with a team, especially if you need people on the same page. If you want to be communicating about the same project or the same task that you're pursuing, Trello is an excellent choice. Now, the second app I want to share with you today is an email application called Boomerang. And you're probably thinking, how does this relate to goal setting or achieving our most important goals? Well, it has a lot to do with keeping our focus on our most important goals. So I think there's two ways that this comes into play with today's session. Number one, we have so many distractions thrown at us on a day-to-day basis, and that's often what keeps us away from our most important work, including our most important goals. Did you know that the average professional spends 6.3 hours dealing with email? Yeah, 6.3 hours. And some of you may be nodding your head at the moment. You may be spending even more time in your day with email. Well, that's certainly going to be taking you away from some of your goals this year. Boomerang gives you some email superpowers so that you can spend less time with your inbox. But there's a second reason why I recommend Boomerang, and that is the ability to focus. The ability to focus on things more intently so you can spend less time with your email. And one of the features that Boomerang adds to your email client is the ability to provide automatic follow-ups if people don't reply to your email. You'll see in the lower part of your screen here, I've circled the additional features, the additional area that Boomerang adds to your email client. I'm showing an example in Gmail here, but it looks somewhat similar. If you use Outlook, it gives you the ability to specify, how much time do I want to go by before I want an answer to this question? So let's say I'm sending this question out. I really need an answer within the next 2 days. I can say, send this back to me, or maybe it's a week, because I see down below here, I've got 4 days in this screenshot. Let's say I really need an answer by the end of this week. So if I'm sending this on Sunday, for example, I'm going to say, listen, if this person doesn't get back to me, bring this back to my inbox as an unread message, and that will be the reminder telling me, oh yeah, so-and-so didn't get back to me on this email. I better pick up the phone or send a follow-up email. And this feature alone, it's just one of the many features of Boomerang, but this follow-up feature alone has absolutely transformed the way I deal with email. Absolutely transformed the way I deal with email. So, Boomerang for email, some of their key benefits. It allows you to schedule emails to come back to you at a better time. If you receive a new email and you say, you know what, I do need to reply to this, or I'd like to reply to this, but just not at the moment, you can bring it back at a time that's better for you. Maybe it's later today, maybe it's tomorrow morning. You can schedule emails to come back to you at a better time. You can also send emails in the future. So for example, maybe you're working late at night and you're sending an email or you're crafting an email at 11:30 p.m. But you realize if you send this right now, that's just going to be one of maybe 100 new emails that someone's going to receive first thing in the morning. And it's not going to be the freshest one because there's going to be other people from other parts of the world or other time zones that's going to be sending messages to this person. Maybe you know that this person gets through much of their email or, is going to be done with many of their meetings by 10:30. Well, you can schedule that email for 10:30 a.m. the next morning. So whether it's different time zones, whether it's just different schedules, or if you just know that individual a little bit, you can schedule when your email arrives. Craft it whenever you need it, right? Write that email whenever you need it, but schedule when you would like for that person to receive it. And then lastly, as I shared here, having email returned if the recipient does not reply. Most or the majority, I would say, of our emails often involve questions and things that we need answers to. So instead of adding a flag to your email or putting that email in a special folder or adding a reminder to your calendar, you can let Boomerang do the work for you. And if and only if that person doesn't reply, will you get that email back in your inbox? And that will be your cue to decide what is the next step. Do you pick up the phone? Do you send another email? Again, this can absolutely transform the way that you deal with email. And the third and final app that I want to share you today to help you stay on track, to help you achieve your goals and get more done, it's kind of boring. It's your clock or your timer app on your phone. That's right. It's nothing special. It doesn't cost you anything. And if you are an iPhone or an Android user, you have one of these two right on your screen at the moment. If you're an Apple user, it's going to look like the one on the left. If you're an Android user, it's going to look like the one on the right. So how is the timer app going to help you stay on track and help you achieve your goals? Well, no joke, the timer app on my phone is probably my most used application more than anything else on my phone. It's not like I'm staring at it at all times, but it's working in the background for much of my day. And timers can be so powerful in helping us stay on track with what's important to us, right? You have important activities, you have important things that you need to get done today, things that are associated with your goal, things that are maybe directly associated with your scoreboard. Set a timer for an appropriate amount of time and then work on that task exclusively. If we think back to the job search example that I showed a bit earlier, think about, revising a resume. You don't just send out the same resume to everyone. You got to customize it depending on the employer or depending on the position. Set a timer for 20 minutes and say, you know what, I'm going to work on revising this resume to align with this business or with this company for the next 20 minutes. And when the timer goes off, you can reevaluate. Do you still need to work a little bit more on that, or should you work on more important tasks afterwards? So timers can be a very, very powerful piece of technology to aid us in getting more things done. And we all have it. You don't even have to go out and download this. You already have it on your phone. So some of the key benefits help you to focus on only one important task at a time. We already know that multitasking kills so much of our productivity. Use a timer to stay on task. And then number two, it helps us to limit the amount of time we spend on less important tasks. There's some things that you need to get done, or there might even be some things that you love to do, and sometimes you spend too much time on. Again, this is a great opportunity to use a timer. Set a limit, get engaged with that activity or get engaged with that task, and then when the timer goes off, move on to something more valuable or something more important. And lastly, one of the great benefits of using a timer is that it keeps you honest about how you use your time. I know a lot of people complain that they don't have enough time in their day. And when I go and ask them to make a log, to make a journal of where they spend their time each and every minute, usually for a duration of about a full week, people are surprised at how much additional time or wasted time that they have in a typical week. Using a timer helps you to be honest with yourself as to where you are spending that time. Spend less time on less important things and more time on more important things. And it's not just about spending more time on those more important things, but muting your phone or minimizing your inbox and focusing exclusively on that one task, that one important task for a specific duration. So, some key takeaways from today's session. One, be very specific with your goal selection. Be specific not just with the wording of how you phrase your goal, but with how many goals you select. The recommendation is do not pursue more than 2 to 3 at any given time. If you want to ensure that you meet or exceed your goal, minimize the number that you are pursuing at any given time. And it doesn't mean that you're only going to pursue 3 goals this year. Maybe you need to narrow the time frame of some of your goals. If I use a classic example like weight loss, and your resolution or your year-end goal is to lose 30 pounds by the end of the year, maybe you need to break that down and say, you know what, I'm gonna lose 8 pounds this quarter. From now to the end of March, I'm going to lose 8 pounds. And that is your goal. That's your key goal. Don't think about the big number. Break down some of those things so that you can achieve those goals that you want to pursue. Number 2, keep a scoreboard and make it very, very visible. You are either winning this game or you are losing this game, and you need to know that. You need to know that on a regular basis. You need to see that on a daily basis, not only for a source of motivation, but to see where you are tracking with achieving that goal. And lastly, explore some of the simple tools that are available to you. Today, I showed you Trello, I showed you Boomerang for email, and I also showed you how to use your timer, or at least gave you some food for thought as to how you could use your timer. So take a look at some of these, applications, or revisit them if you have tried them out in the past before. So, as mentioned at the beginning, I'd love to hear some of your questions or comments about anything related to goals or anything related that was brought up in today's session. You can use the live chat session here on YouTube, or you can use Twitter and use the hashtag #StopTheBusy. I'll be looking for questions there afterwards or in the comments below. We've got a couple of questions here. One to start off with here. Scott, do SMART goals, and that's capital SMART, SMART, do SMART goals still work? And do you use this method? So I'm sure many of us are familiar with the SMART acronym, right? It stands for specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and timely goals. And it's been around for a long, long time. I think SMART is still relevant in crafting your goal in terms of how you word it. You want to make sure that you have, a definable deadline, right? That there's an end date or a due date. You want to make sure it's measurable in the sense that, you've either hit it or not. That comes back to our scoreboard. But I think you need to go beyond just SMART goals, because a lot of our resolutions, a lot of our year-long or longer than a year-long goals may meet that criteria, but they're too far out, right? They're too far out, and as a result, we stumble on them. So yeah, using SMART goals can be a great place to start. But I think, again, having a scoreboard combined with defining a SMART board or SMART goal, is really a key thing here. I got a question here from Deanna. It says, but what if your employer forbids putting company-related tasks in the cloud? Great question, Deanna, and I'm assuming this is related to Trello. Yes, that could be a difficult one in your professional life. Certain organizations, certain companies have different restrictions, have different standards when it comes to sharing information with different applications. Trello does have a business class or a business version. So, there's more security behind that and so forth. So I know there's many many businesses, many Fortune 500 companies that make use of Trello as a part of their project management and team collaboration. So you may want to explore that, or at least you can maybe direct your IT team or other people in charge of that to those types of pages. But it's true that that may be a limitation depending on what your employer allows or does not allow. And another question here we've got is it better to have a physical scoreboard like a poster or a digital scoreboard like Trello? That is a great question. So even though I've introduced Trello today, or I've mentioned Trello as a part of today's session, and yeah, a great place to visualize your goals, organize your goals, and there's lots of colors and stickers and other types of things you can use with Trello to help keep track of goals. You may be surprised by my answer to this one, and that is, in most cases, I would say physical scoreboards, such as a poster or a whiteboard, or something else that you have tacked up near your desk or on a wall, usually trumps a digital board, usually is better than software. And the main reason is that you're going to see it more frequently. Right? If you keep your scoreboard or your scorecard in the digital space, chances are you're not seeing it all the time. You might not even be seeing it on a daily basis. So if you are able to have some type of physical scoreboard, I think your chances go up. Your chances increases to achieving that goal, just because it's more visible. You're just going to see it more often. It's going to be that reminder, and you can see, whether you're progressing forward, or if you've maybe stalled and you need to change things up a little bit. So, thank you so much for your great questions. Like I said, if you have more, feel free to add them in the comments below, or use the hashtag #StopTheBusy. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties we had at the beginning of today's call. Sometimes that's the way it goes, and that's what happened to us today. So thank you for your patience. Thank you for attending today. I'm just going to leave you with one last question before we wrap things up, and that is this: is email getting in the way of your goals? You heard me mention a statistic a few moments ago that the average professional spends 6.3 hours dealing with email. And, you might be one of those people that are spending 6, 7, 8 hours a day managing, reading, reviewing email in some way, shape, or form. Well, I can guarantee you that is stopping you from achieving some of your goals, or at least getting to those goals as fast or as quickly as you would like to. If you would like to drastically reduce the amount of time you spend with email, I would encourage you to check out the Own Your Inbox course. This is an online course presented by Simpletivity, and you can get started for free. In fact, I just spoke to one of my customers earlier this week who went from about 5 or 6 hours of email down to 45 minutes. He's at about 45 minutes to an hour on a daily basis with his email. So if you would like to learn more about the Own Your Inbox course, I'd encourage you to visit simpletivity.com, and you can start the course for free. Thank you again for attending today. And remember, being productive does not need to be difficult. In fact, it's very simple.